Hello, so this is it, the Q&A, and I'm going to try and get through this as much as I can in one go. I've kind of organised the questions together so they're in some kind of order, but it is going to be kind of random. So, the first bunch are from Ollie Dunhill, Prox Marcus and Alcon93, and they're kind of all about me. So, what's your name? Well, my name's Andy. Was christened Andrew, but don't really like it, and my parents always called me Andy. What country are you from? Well, I'm from England, so Great Britain or the UK. Most people abroad don't really know the difference between England, Great Britain and the UK. So England is an individual country, Great Britain is a combination of Scotland, England and Wales, and the UK is properly known as the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So it's Northern Ireland, England, Scotland and Wales. There you go, little lesson. How old are you? Well, I'm 44. Yes, I'm old. How did you get your nickname Blindman? Well, besides the obvious reason, it's not really a nickname, it's just what I use when I'm playing games. What else have we got? What do you do for a living? Well, I used to be a senior analyst programmer on database projects. So I did projects involving military vehicles, fleet management, even did accountancy at some points. So basically I used to design and program databases. Now I'm kind of medically retired, so I'm on disability. What other hobbies do you enjoy besides gaming? I've always liked doing hobbies that I shouldn't really do, so I've done things like archery, paintball, and currently do airsoft. I used to play for a paintball team, playing in the woods on scenario days, but mostly playing what's known as sup air, which is around the inflatables on something the size of a five-side football pitch. And I had to give that up because one of the big parts of that is being able to see the paintballs in the air. Paintballs you can dodge, and I couldn't really do that, so I gave that up. Airsoft, you can't really see the BBs coming most of the time, so it doesn't matter. And I have a 4x scope on my gun, which is too large really for an airsoft gun, but means I get to see what's going on, so I use it to scan around quite a lot. So I'm not very good at airsoft, but I enjoy it because it gets me out and about with my mates. Other hobbies: photography. I take a lot of photos, places I visit, stuff like that. Some people think it's a bit odd for somebody who doesn't see very well to be interested in photography. I have quite a large digital SLR camera, but it has distinct advantages because the camera can see things that I can't. So if I go to lots of glamorous beauty spots, like you're probably seeing in the background now, I'll probably put some pictures of Guyana in, which is a holiday I went on a few years ago. Then I can see the vistas while I'm there, but I can't see them as well as the camera. So take photos and then I can study them later to my heart's content. Another hobby I have is probably films. Really love films and TV, but mostly movies. Particularly horror and sci-fi movies of a certain genre, not major blockbuster gore fest slasher horrors, and certainly not big expansive sci-fi films. So my favourite films are things like Hardware, which is a really good indie sci-fi horror film, 28 Days Later, Dog Soldiers, that kind of thing, the sort of smaller, more character-based horrors and sci-fis, but they're usually not massive blockbusters. So that'd be things like Monsters, District 9, A Field in England, that kind of thing. TV wise, I'll watch anything that's got a detective in it basically. Anything from Jeremy Brett's Sherlock Holmes series all the way up to NCIS. If it's got a good detective story in it and decent characters, then I'll watch it. The one I didn't get on with was The Wire, and I think that's probably because I saw The Shield first, and in my opinion The Shield is better than The Wire. And I don't watch Game of Thrones because I've read the books. My music tastes are firmly set in the 90s really, so bands like The Fields of the Nephilim, Sisters of Mercy, Bauhaus, The Damned, early Guns N' Roses, 9 Inch Nails, Ministry, lots of weird stuff that most people haven't heard of, and quite a lot of mainstream stuff. But if I check my phone, which I use an MP3 player, then there'll be, I think there's 36 albums from before the year 2000 and 6 albums after the year 2000. So that gives you an idea. Harry Hewitt says, "Are you really blind?" Well, I'm obviously not totally blind. I have a condition known as juvenile macular dystrophy. So macular dystrophy is often seen in old people, and it's basically a deterioration in the retina. However, juvenile macular dystrophy affects children and goes on for the rest of your life. So I got it around 6 and 7. Well, that's when it was identified. I probably had it since birth because it's a genetic disorder called Stargardt's disease. And my parents noticed it when I was about 6 or 7. Went to see a lot of specialists, even went to Harley Street at one point. And it's basically been there all my life, so I don't really know what it's like to see 20/20 vision. I've never had it. And so it's just something I have to live with and cope with, really. Pie Loving Poop Man says, "Do you like pie?" Yes, I do. Don't eat it that often because I'm trying to be healthy. But a Huntsman pie is by far the best pie in the world. And if you don't know what Huntsman pie is, well, a proper Huntsman pie, in my opinion, is essentially a pork pie in the base, but it's got chicken and stuffing then on top of that. Some people do them with a layer of pastry across the top, but that's wrong. You should just have stuffing on the top. So it's kind of like an open pie with pork and chicken and stuffing in it. Very nice. Will Brothers asks, Xbox or PlayStation? I couldn't tell you, Will, because I've never owned either. I'm not from the console generation. When I was a teenager and playing a lot of games, we played games on home computers. Now, they weren't PCs, they were things like the Spectrum, the Commodore 64, the Amiga, the BBC Model B, the Archimedes, that kind of thing. That's the kind of computer you had at home. And although there were consoles, they were very basic and they were expensive and the games were expensive. But home computers, you could, in those days, just copy games from your mates, go out, buy one for a few quid. It was easy. And there was a thing called shareware, which was basically a free game where you got maybe half the game for free, and if you liked it you bought the other half. So here I can drop in a question from Zane the Kid, which is, what was the first video game you ever played? Now, the first video game I ever played was on a cabinet in a pub that I went to with my parents, and I can't remember if it was Space Invaders or Pac-Man, but it was one of the two. The first video games I used to play at home were on a BBC Model B, and I used to play Defender a lot. That was a really cool game. And I used to play Elite a hell of a lot. I played that like it was wow. I used to play it for hours and hours and hours. And there's currently a brand new multiplayer version of Elite in alpha, and I'm in the beta for that, so you may well see it on the channel. My dad bought our first PC in 1986, 87, something like that, It was an Amstrad 1512 and it was an 8086 processor that ran at something like 10 megahertz, and it had floppy drives, and we had the first hard drive we ever had, and that was an entire 10 megabytes. So I've been going with PCs for pretty much as long as they've been out. The first PC I ever bought myself was a 486 DX33, so that was a 33 megahertz PC, and I bought that when I was a student. So I've never really done the console thing. I've never really understood why anybody would have a PC and a console, because the PC does so much more. You know, you can type on it. Having a keyboard is a big thing for me, because I like to type and do letters and print and all that kind of stuff. A console is just for playing games, but it does it worse than a PC, which is designed to do a lot of different things. That's my point of view. They may be trying to sell consoles now as home entertainment systems, but everything a console can do that doesn't involve gaming, my phone can do with a Chromecast. So my phone can now stream Netflix and iPlayer to my TV with a 30 quid little dongle. I don't need a console to do it. Does this make me part of the so-called PC master race? Yes, it does, and I'm proud of it. Consoles are overpriced, the games on them are overpriced, and they still don't do 1080p. I'm amazed by the fact that neither of the two modern consoles will run games properly at 1080p, even though TVs are about to move on from 1080p. Makes no sense to me whatsoever to use a console for gaming or for anything. So that leads on to Patrick Lee's question: can you tell us what computer you use and its specs? Well, my PC is a home built one, it wasn't bought off the shelf, and I did a video for the 1000 subs which shows you all the things that are inside it, so I will link that now on the screen, and I'll get it to open in another window, so you can pause this, click on the link, and it'll show you that video, and then you can come back and carry this on. Blind Sid wants to know, what monitor magnifier do you use, and what other assistive devices do you use to help you play? Well, for playing games I don't really use any devices other than the fact that I have a large 28-inch screen and it's only a couple of feet away. And I suppose my SteelSeries Mercenary keyboard, because it's got its own little gamepad on the side, and that makes it a lot easier to work out what keys I've got my fingers on. Other than that, I don't use any aids for gaming. I have played around with using OBS, which is the open broadcast software that I use to record, to make the minimap bigger. I can make my minimap the full size of my second screen. So rather than using the Battlelog version, which doesn't actually make anything any bigger, it just shows you a wider view, I can make the minimap full size, full screen. But the problem with that is, of course, is that I'm often recording and you can't do them both. So you can use OBS to give you a big minimap, but I can't do it while I'm recording, so I don't do that very often. I apologise up front to the next two people because they asked the same question and they both have names that I have no idea how to pronounce. Karim Jijgurkanov? Yeah, that's got to be wrong. And Josu Barcenas. That's probably supposed to be Hosu or something like that, isn't it? Anyway, I apologise for murdering your names. Essentially, they want to know what made me start doing videos. Again, I think this is covered in the introduction video to the channel. But essentially, it was to see if I could do it. I couldn't find the kind of videos I wanted, which were clear, easy guides, originally to Minecraft, to the Skyblock map I was trying to do. It took me ages to try and find out how to do one thing, which was light the nether portal. and eventually after much digging I found out how to do it, so I put an easy guide up to show everybody else how to do it. So I ended up making 4 little video guides. They were very basic, there wasn't any narration on them, it was all just done with text on the screen, and between them they've now got like 200,000 views, which made me think people wanted the same kind of videos I did. And I then decided that I would do a guide to Skyblock, but left it a couple of years because I just never got round to it. So eventually I did the guide to Skyblock, people watched that, and when I started playing Battlefield 4 I had the same problem. The wording on the assignments was pretty awful for the early ones. It is getting better, but it was awful. And trying to work out how you were supposed to do them was a bit tricky. Trying to find out decent information on how good specific guns were and how to use gadgets was really tough originally. So I started making the guides to assignments and weapons and that kind of stuff. That led to Battlefield 4 news, because again there was nowhere I could find that had all the news condensed into one. So I was basically making the kind of videos that I wanted to try and watch but couldn't find. They probably are out there, it's just I couldn't find them. And then that became a bit of a project to see, could you do it on the cheap? So a lot of videos that you watch on things like Minecraft and Battlefield are somebody using a headset mic, and there's a lot of noise in the background. I watched one the other day that was obviously made by a 12-year-old using a headset mic with music playing in the background and somebody in his family shouting and swearing. So that kind of thing doesn't take a lot of planning. The original videos I did, I was using a headset, but I was using a Windows Live Chat headset which is designed for Skype, so it's got a good mic on it. And I was using some free software which I can't remember the name of now. Begins with a B, but I've forgotten what it was. Anyway, eventually I bought a copy of Fraps, which was $20 I think. I bought a cheap little Samsung Go mic which was about $40 equivalent, and that's pretty much all you need to make reasonable quality videos. I don't think my videos are good quality, there's no real production values in them because I have no production skills, no graphics skills. I've been learning this as I go along. But hopefully they're clear enough and presented well enough that you can understand what the object of the video is. So I don't do my news shows over Battlefield footage because that's not relevant to the news. You'll get a lot of people who show Battlefield footage and tanks and explosions while they're trying to explain something completely different. My idea was that even if it's only still images, the images should help explain what I'm trying to say. So that's why I started making videos, just to see if I could and if they'd be any good. Josu or Hosu also asks, would you cover more gaming news? Probably not. Now the reason for that is I don't own a console, so I can't comment on console issues, and there's an awful lot of games that I don't play. I only play the games I like. So to do a full news show, I think involves you in playing a wide variety of games, having much more knowledge of gaming in general, and being informed on what you talk about. I can talk about Battlefield 4 issues because I've played Battlefield 4 since the beta. I've played Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, 2142. I've played a lot of the Battlefield games, and I pretty much know what I'm talking about when it comes to Battlefield. And a bit of research into things like netcode didn't take that long to try and work out exactly what it was that people meant by netcode. That's the only thing really I've had to look up concerning Battlefield 4. But when it comes to other parts of the gaming world, I would simply be reading other people's opinions on the web and then reading those back out onto a video, and I don't think that works. But there is, in the next question, who are your favourite YouTubers? Some people who are much better at this than I possibly ever could be.